This is CBS News Bay Area with Reed Cowan.
Right off the top at 3 o'clock, more violence on a San Francisco street. This time, the victim is the city's former fire commissioner. Right here at 3 o'clock, we're going to continue this community conversation, drilling down on public safety in the city and how maybe we can move forward with some solutions. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Reed Cowan. We wish you a good Friday. So let's get you caught up on the attack of the former San Francisco fire commissioner, Don Carmignani. So police say it happened Wednesday evening over near Magnolia and Laguna Streets in the Marina. They say somebody attacked that 53-year-old man with a metal pipe. Officers did find and arrested a suspect. That suspect was Jody, according to police. That takedown happened around Laguna and Lombard Streets. The victim, Don Carmignani, and after the attack, we understand he had surgery on his skull. That's according to his friend. Carmignani, by the way, is seen here doing a radio appearance about 6 months ago, just to familiarize yourself with his face there. Today, he's in a hospital bed. He briefly served as fire commissioner in 2013 and is one of the city's biggest landlords for medical cannabis businesses. Listen to what San Francisco's police chief and DA had to say about this brutal attack.
I've seen the photo of the former commissioner. It was a very brutal and violent attack.
Heart goes out to him and his family. He's expected to survive his injuries, which is good news. But of brutal attacks and these type of brazen attacks, and these are the type of things that have people anxious about what's happening.
So the suspect, we can tell you, was booked on charges of assault with a deadly weapon. That incident in the Marina comes just after the deadly and world headline-making stabbing of tech executive Bob Lee. That happened in San Francisco's Rincon Hill neighborhood. And today we're getting a look at surveillance video obtained by the Daily Mail. Fair warning. This video shows Mr. Lee walking in the last moments of his life just after the attack early Tuesday morning. Look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You can actually see him stumbling towards an apartment building where he falls. He's then seen reaching for his phone. He was rushed to a hospital where he later died. We can tell you, Lee, even though he lived here in our area for quite some time, was visiting from Florida where he'd recently moved. Police say they're following up on leads, but they're not saying much else about the case. Pretty tight-lipped right now. So the crimes don't stop there in San Francisco. Sadly, we have to tell you, there's also been another attempted break-in, this time at a cannabis dispensary. Just after industry leaders joined shoulder to shoulder, you saw it here at 3 o'clock yesterday, to say enough and to call on city leaders to ask for help. So get a close look at this. Cameras caught these criminals trying to break in at this 13th Street business. The photographer on the scene says that they first heard kind of a loud crash just before 3:30 this morning. Then they saw a van back into one of the dispensary doors. A lot of people reportedly jumped out of the van and then tried in a very organized way to break into the store using sledgehammers, crowbars, and a saw. Police found that van a short time later nearby. So we can tell you this is what we were talking about. The San Francisco cannabis community has been hit hard for months by a string of armed robberies, burglaries, even reports of staff kidnappings. So here they are, uniting as a community, calling on the city yesterday to tackle the violent challenges that they face as business owners. The San Francisco Cannabis Coalition is working with San Francisco Police Department, and they're asking the city for emergency funding and more security. Let's go to Twitter, where the conversation continues. San Francisco Supervisor Asha Safai said he is leading on legislation that will allow roll-down gates for cannabis and other retail stores, and goes on to say we need to deter break-ins and crimes before they happen. And he is here once again. Thank you so much for agreeing to have a conversation.
Thanks for having me
down
here
at 3 o'clock. So gates to roll down, but are they any match for people who show up with blowtorches to get into a cannabis dispensary?
Well, I actually went and visited Ali yesterday at Sunset Connect, one of the places that was hit this week. And what he said to me was, really, they were very appreciative of this legislation. Right now, our planning code doesn't allow for metal roll-down gates. A lot of time, they're much more easier to get through. The image that you showed on the camera last night actually probably did slow down and stop the robbery from happening. So sometimes minutes can make the difference in these robberies and burglaries. So it's a first step. But the other step is actually getting more officers into these district stations.
And listen, the drumbeat is about safety, and you're out there on Twitter right now. Let's go to one of your tweets. This is what you said regarding San Francisco crime and safety. You said many people have reached out and have expressed so much anxiety, anger, and frustration about how out of control our city is right now. You went on to say we all need to come back together and lock arms for better solutions. Brazen crime is real. It's affecting us all. San Francisco can do better. That was you on Twitter. So Supervisor Dorsey, who is one of your peers, one of the leaders here in our community, was here a couple of days ago. I asked him point blank, should people feel safe in San Francisco? He couldn't give me a clear yes. What do you say?
I mean, I think right now there's a general sense, as I said there, of anxiety. People know that homes, cars, businesses, and then their bodies are being injured and harmed, in some cases killing, in the worst case with Bob Lee. And so San Francisco really does feel out of control right now. And so we need to do better. We need to come together. The leadership of the city needs to come together. We need to sit down with the police chief. I was on the phone with him the entire way over here today, just talking to him. Some of the policies we have restrict the ability of the police to do their job.
What's the worst?
So one of the worst is, like, oftentimes people say the cop showed up and then they didn't pursue. We have a very restrictive pursuit policy. In many cases, there's really good reasons for that. Sometimes they can end in fatalities, but then we have to go to other solutions. We have the ability to use technology, surveillance technology, technology that can tag vehicles, license plate readers. We're not deploying it. This is the center of technology, but yet we're not using the innovative ideas that can fill the gap to take away the deadly chases that can happen. But then we also need to let the criminals know that we're going to follow up, they're going to be arrested, and there's going to be consequences.
Mr. Benedicto, who is in a supervisory role where policing is concerned here in the city, was on yesterday. And what I said to him is, I'm kind of seeing a fracture. We see his perspective where San Francisco is safe. Then we're hearing people who are saying, you know, the concerns are real and there is a real safety problem. How can the people, it's the same question I asked yesterday, how can the people who live in this city feel safe when the leaders seem to be divided on the narrative, the message, and the approach?
Well, I think, you know, we're united at the Board of Supervisors. We just approved a $25 million budget supplemental. What I had a problem with that, and I think we talked about this last time, Reed, was that it was so heavily concentrated in the downtown, it ignored the district stations, it ignored the neighborhoods. And in this instance, his mother, the commissioner's mother, the one that's fatally injured, it's in the hospital recovering right now, in very critical condition, his mother had called the police a few times that day. They didn't show up because there's such shortage of officers in the city. They weren't able to prioritize that call. Then he shows up to the scene, tries to take matters into his own hands, and ends up in the hospital. If we have more officers, if we're prioritizing not just the downtown, but the entire city, the response is going to be better. So in my mind, this is really a management issue. And I think we can do better in managing the resources, the situation, and having the response better.
We certainly have citizens who are calling for it. We'll have you join us here after the break with somebody who is asking for that help. We thank you so much.
I always dreamed of having a business in San Francisco as a little girl, and now I have a business and I have no protection. I pay taxes just like everybody else. I need the protection like everybody else.
Somebody's gonna get hurt, for real. Whether it's on our side, on the other side, this has to stop.
Leaders in the cannabis industry just yesterday speaking out. They say crime is threatening their livelihoods and they're asking for more security. So we're also hearing that for some, there are concerns the recent break-ins and burglaries at dispensaries could be part of something bigger. Joining me now, the CEO of Node Labs, Lauren Avenius. Lauren, I should have asked how to pronounce your last name, first of all.
Avenius.
Avenius. All right, you'll get me trained here. And Supervisor Asha Safai, you're kind enough to join us once again as well.
Thank you.
You know, it's almost chilling. You heard one of your peers in the cannabis industry saying somebody is going to get hurt, and then within hours, somebody was very, very hurt. You say this is part of something more organized.
What we see when we look at the footage of our own security cameras and of the community in general is these are organized. They're well funded. They have equipment, the machines. They come in proficient, competently. And so these aren't random break-ins. This is an organized group of people that are aware of the vulnerabilities in our cannabis facilities and know exactly how to break in and how to move through. These are professional criminals.
I want to really pin this down. You say organized and well-funded. You know, it almost sounds like the makings of a movie. And we know that the allegation has been made, especially down in the Tenderloin, that drug pushing is part of a larger problem and something organized in the crime world. Are you saying that?
I don't know if they are like organized in the sense of like The Godfather, the movie. I
like
think
cartels.
Yeah, I think that that's a fantasy that we like to think of because we like to think that more people are tightly organized. I do think, though, that there is a sharing of information. that there is a sharing of resources, and that these are groups who are professionally organized in this. Now, how large their network goes, I wouldn't be able to say, and honestly, that's one of the things we're asking for police support on, is what are their investigations finding? How can we better protect ourselves? What do we need to know about what casing our facility looks like, or how to identify potential dangers and threats? And we're waiting for that information.
Supervisor, you just heard one of our people, one of our business owners here in the Bay Area. What are your answers to those questions?
I mean, I would also add that I think they're specifically choosing San Francisco because they know the consequences and the loopholes that exist. Lack of consequences and loopholes that exist. And so we talked a little bit about it earlier. The pursuit policy that exists in San Francisco is one that is very, very restrictive. So even if the police show up, if they don't see an individual inside, if there's not guns drawn, then they are required not to pursue.
Who wrote that policy?
That's been written a number of years ago. And as I said, I was on the phone with the chief about it today.
Yep.
And so we have to adjust. We have to figure out ways. There is technology that can tag the bumpers, that can read the license plates, that can follow up on the individuals. We used to have a helicopter in San Francisco. People, scoff at the idea. Some people do. But when people know that there's going to be a pursuit, they're less likely to be involved in these high-end property crimes. And I agree. They are organized, they are targeted, and they are very, very efficient. And they're happening almost, it feels like, on a daily basis.
It feels that way too. And to add what you're saying to whether it's the pursuit or the ability of the police to respond, Reese Benton, who was highlighted in your segment just now, the CEO of Posh Green, she had
and they're still closed today.
She had a savage break-in where they actually physically ripped the storefront off the wall. So when you talk about the roll-down gates, that would have prevented that for her. The reason that it took the police over 45 minutes to respond is because they were busy at the site that the same group had hit just 20 minutes before getting to her facility.
And you know what? That's the problem here. And that's the problem that's now making national headlines with San Francisco at the top of the headline, whether it's television or print. And that's why we have to have conversations like this. I want to thank you both. We could devote a whole hour, maybe even 2 hours to this. We at least opened the conversation, and I appreciate you both so much. Lauren, Node Labs, San Francisco Supervisor Asha Safai, thank you both.